Hey everyone, welcome back to Unlearn with Bianca. On this podcast, we explore everything around self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. Hey guys, welcome back. Today on the podcast, I have Tawna Woods. Tawna has been a PT for many years, and she is now a trauma-informed Kundalini activation facilitator, a Sensual Embodiment facilitator, and a Breathwork facilitator. We are going to cover a lot of bases and really just get to know Tawna and learn more about her story. Welcome, Tawna. I know there's been a huge journey that's led you to the woman you are today. I'm so excited to be chatting away with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello. Very excited to be here and to share my story over the past decade, the wild ride that's led me here.
I noticed that. I've seen that you've been through quite a journey. And yeah, I'd actually love to start on that point. It's funny because sometimes I get guests on and I'm like, do I want to explore their story? There's so much to cover. But for you, I know that you've really been through a whole lot of different seasons. So I'd love to explore that more. So let's take it all the way back. Before we get into what you do, I'm keen to hear the moments that have really led you in this direction and how you really take a holistic approach to well-being.
Yes. So when I was 23 years old, I fell pregnant with my daughter, who's now almost 14. That was the first pivotal moment where I understood. Prior to that, I wasn't caring for myself. Like I was a snowboard instructor, traveling the world, snowboarding, partying was my lifestyle. All I wanted to do truly was I lived to party and snowboard. And then I fell pregnant unplanned at a very young age. But I knew at that moment, I was like, okay, this is a very pivotal time to look at how I've been living my life. And it wasn't good at that time. And I believe that happened to wake me up, obviously, very quickly. So I gave birth to her when I was 24. And then from there, I actually ended up becoming the healthiest and fittest version of myself I ever had in my life. I started training at the gym and eating really healthy. And growing up, actually, my parents my mum and my stepdad owned a gym in Taupo, and they were actually bodybuilders they were world class, traveling the world doing that. So growing up, I always grew up around health and wellness and that sort of being in gyms and knowing that that's, how to care for yourself. I just went on a different path for a while. So I actually studied to become a personal trainer when my daughter was about 2. And then from there, I really wanted to inspire other women to show them that they can, if they choose, become the most healthiest, fittest, happy version of themselves. So that led me to create my business, which was called Wanaka Body. So I've just recently changed my name on Instagram and my website. And so that's a whole nother story of a identity shift, I guess.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that was massive. So I started Wanaka Body in 2015. And really, so I created work sessions where mothers could come and bring their children along to train while they worked out with their kids. So at that time, my daughter's father was away in Australia working. So I remember thinking, like, what do I do? Like, that was my kind of way of supporting my mental health and, being healthy and strong for my daughter. So I created something that wasn't in the town at the time. No one was doing that. And so that I didn't expect it, but my business took off so rapidly. So within the first year, it just exploded. Created a community for women to feel connection and feel supported. And, for some people, if they choose to have children, one of the biggest initiations of their lives, right? And so I really wanted, it just became that safe space for people to come along, whether or not it was really about working out. But, we created lifelong connections and friends, and you'd go for coffee and we'd do different things.
Yeah.
And then, and even for myself, it was really empowering when I truly was like at that time, I thought, just the fittest version of me. And I was like, if I can do this, and 10 years, a few years before that being like overweight and like partying and drugs and just like not good, to this, like it's possible for anybody, no matter if you have had a baby or not, I used to think like, oh, my life, not my life's over, but I'm not going to be healthy. I won't be, yeah. And so then that expanded to be, I ended up doing more bigger group fitness classes where men and women could come. I'd have 30 in a class sometimes, and I was doing 3 sessions a day. I was getting up at 5 a.m., finishing at 7 at night. I was doing health and wellness events and talks and bringing different practitioners in from in Wanaka. So I was creating a real a big community. But what happened at that time, because I was so young, all I knew at that time was that I thought we had to worry about physical health and nutrition. I really, truly didn't know what mental health was. I didn't know about emotional health, spiritual health, anything. So over the first 4 years, my business expanded so quickly. I was very much a people pleaser. I can do it all on my own. I don't need any help. It's my thing. Like my ego really got in the way, and I really honestly needed help. Like I couldn't run what I was doing. I was doing 15 sessions a week, getting up at 5, and I was holding space for up to like sometimes 100 people a day. But I was like, this is all good. Like I've got it. And I think a few different things were also happening in that time. So I actually ended up separating from my daughter's father. So we were together for 7 years, and that ended. And at the time then, I didn't realize what I was doing. But to cope with that big life transition and change, I suppressed with exercise and work, threw myself into that. And I was at that time an epitome of health. So I was actually sponsored by one of the shops in town. I was basically a health and wellness influencer for the town, very well known, like having to do photo shoots and doing like posts for the different brands to promote their products.
Yeah.
And I started doing this thing where I would do like a hike or 2 a week. So I'd do like Mount Roy. I don't know if the listeners have heard of that. Well, I'm sure most people have. Big 16-kilometer missions, and I do 2 a week. I do high intensity training. That's all I knew as well. I didn't rest. I didn't know how to really have a day off. My day off would be walking up Mount Iron, which is a smaller walk here, but it's still walking felt like not enough because normally I'd run. I didn't know how to listen to my body or rest, but I was the epitome of health. Like Tawna's doing all these hikes, and then all the women would follow the walks that I would do. And like, I'm going to do that, Tawna. I did that walk on the weekend. That was so cool. Where was this? Became this little thing. And then slowly over time, I started to I wasn't sleeping properly. I then went to Bali and I got parasites over there. And that was another thing that really, my health just like really went downhill quickly. I went from it sounds silly, but when you look at the photos, you can see the impact of what that did. I had like a 6-pack abs, like always. And then 6 weeks later, like my gut looked 9 months pregnant, rock hard, inflammation, like my mental health wasn't good, like I wasn't sleeping. And that was at that time, I was like, oh yeah, I've just got parasites. Like I've got to sort this out. Within that time, and this is, I'll reflect as I go along this journey. I've learned what that was all about now. But I actually started to slowly burn out. Things were happening, but I just was not paying attention. I just kept doing what I was doing because that's all I knew and that's how I would cope, right? So you do what you know until it doesn't work and until your body screams.
Till the body screams.
Yeah. Till the body screams so much that you've got no other choice but to listen. And this was sort of going on, and I was trying to do everything I could to help my gut, spending thousands of dollars on naturopaths and anything under the sun, changing my diet. Like I went vegan. I like did all these really controlling things, thinking I was trying to control the symptoms. But looking back now, I realized that my life was actually, there was the only thing I could control in my life. And it was the thing that made me feel some sense of safety, I suppose. But actually everything else was slowly falling apart. A little bit after, there was a bit of time that passed, and after breaking up with my daughter's father, and I met someone else and I fell in love, and it was, I thought, a really beautiful relationship for 2 years. and everything was going really well. Business was booming, like all this great stuff was happening. And then all of a sudden I got broken up with, and I didn't see it coming. Like it truly at the time was a shock. It was greater things at play as why that happened. But that was the next initiation I see now. And what happened now at the time, I just shut down. I just completely, I did not have the capacity or tools to deal with that what was happening and that heartbreak. And my nervous system just went, we're going to just cut that. You're not going to feel that now. We'll deal to that later. At the time, I didn't know that was happening. I just continued on. And from that day, that afternoon, I lost my cycle. I lost my period because I'd just been to America. So I'd just been traveling for 3 weeks over there, and I was like, oh, it might be jet lag, and maybe I'm just that your body can be a bit funny after traveling. And we went to Coachella and we partied a little bit, and I thought I wasn't really looking after myself too well, and so I was like, oh, that's weird. It'll come right. So I left it for a while, went to the doctor, and they were like, okay, well, after 6 weeks, we'll refer you to a endocrinologist. So I went there, and they were doing different tests, and it was really interesting because they did some bloods on me, and they had found in my bloods that I had an elevated growth hormone, so IGF-1, and also a loss of period. So generally when that happens, they say you have a pituitary gland tumor. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like what is going on? I know my health hasn't been right, but that was the first thought. But they gave me an MRI and nothing was there. So there was no tumor, there was nothing, but there was still this elevation of my growth hormone. And it was unknown cause. So I spent months and months going back and forth to Dunedin, not knowing why I had lost my period. They thought like, you're not eating enough, you're exercising too much. But at this point, I really had stopped. I was going on walks, I was eating food like that. I knew in my gut that wasn't happening. And so I was doing a lot of research around, why this was happening. So that was an incredibly, incredibly challenging time in my life. But I continued on, and then it ended up being maybe like a year or two later and around COVID time. And I was still like battling along, like pretending everything was fine to everybody that I was, because even being how I was prior and like really healthy and all the things, and then my health was deteriorating. I didn't know why. And I didn't want to tell people or share that I was not good. Like I was not okay.
Yeah. And you were a PT, you had a business to run, right?
Exactly.
So you had to maintain the image and that identity of being the healthy person.
And so within that time, there was this like identity crisis. Like I can barely walk down the street. Like who am I and I'd really placed a lot of attachment to my identity around being Wanaka body, quote unquote. I didn't realize at the time that that's what I had done. And people knew me as that. And if I wasn't that, who was I? And so that was another thing in itself. And then COVID ended up hitting and different things happened. But I ended up having, there's so much to this story. I ended up getting severely depressed, and I basically had a breakdown, and they diagnosed me with major depressive disorder. And so I couldn't work. I couldn't look after my daughter. I had all these symptoms of like catatonia. I wasn't speaking. I was, just really like chronic anxiety where I could not leave my house. I couldn't leave the room. I couldn't go to it was just terrifying time. So I got admitted to hospital, and I went from being like how I am. I mean, things were deteriorating over time, but it just did happen really quite fast. Yeah. Couldn't recognize me. And because of all the tests I'd been having with the endocrinologist over the years, because there were still unknown causes, luckily when I got admitted to hospital, they did multiple tests on me, and they gave me a spinal tap because I was having all these symptoms that another woman was having, that there was actually a Netflix doco made called Brain on Fire. And luckily to me, where I feel like someone was looking out for me, the trainees psychiatrist was watching the movie at the time, and I had all the same symptoms as this woman, and they gave me a spinal tap, and they found that I had a spinal cord infection. So luckily they'd realized that, but all of those, an infection in your spinal cord is going to cause infection in the brain, right? Like, inflammation of the brain,
Yeah.
the body. And so it wasn't what they were testing for, which was meningitis and encephalitis. It didn't come back as either of those things. It was an unknown infection. So that was actually left inconclusive, which, to this day, I'm still like, I know that was what was causing all of these other symptoms, but it was a really wild time. But a month later, they retested me, and that infection had cleared, and I was back to normal.
Wow,
But
and you mentally as well, and
yeah,
in terms of your nervous as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So interesting.
So it was really, it was a really wild time. Yeah, looking back now, that time I still had lost my cycle. Bear in mind, so this had been 2.5 years at this point. And so going through that, being deeply, deeply depressed, and actually I was suicidal. That was what was creating all of these different thoughts. And I do believe now that I had to experience being at the depths of that, and to understand what people do truly go through when they're suicidal and attempt to take their life and different things like that. I believe I had to feel that to have the understanding at an experiential level of what people go through, and it is real. It's not, people don't just do it for attention, or it's real. So I don't, as scary as that time was, I was also really disconnected from something greater than myself, and going through that allowed me to connect to something to save my life, really. I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and, everything, all of that wouldn't change, and it's led me here. But from still at that, so I had to stop working. I couldn't look after my daughter for a year. So I'd had that experience, but I was still back. I had to rebuild my life, right? Still had a lot of inflammation in my body. Like, I was swollen face, swollen everything. So I was still recovering from what I experienced in hospital throughout the time prior, to the guilt around not caring for my daughter for 7 months because I couldn't, just, there was a lot there. And so I was doing a lot of research around just still that elevated growth hormone. And what I found was that elevated growth hormones can be caused by suppressed emotion. And so that was like the first, you know, sort of thing where I was like, okay, there's something here. And so after I'd gotten out of hospital and came out of that phase, one of my friends who was a physiotherapist in Wanaka, they'd moved to Dunedin, and she shared with me to go to this acupuncturist who was helping her husband that was going through some stuff at the time, some mental health challenges. And I went to him, and I walked in, and he took one look at me, this Chinese man, and he said, "You're holding a lot of emotion." And I was like, "I know, I don't know what it is." My stomach was really bloated. And he goes, "Okay, lie down. I'm going to put some special needles in your back." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay." So he did that. It was really painful, and I just remember thinking, like, "Oh my gosh, like, what are you doing?" He's like, "It's okay, it's okay."
Yeah,
Like, okay.
yeah.
And so had the treatment, and at this day, I was going from Dunedin, where I'd been in hospital for 2 months. I actually got sent. I decided, I was like, "I've got to go back to Wanaka. I have to look after my daughter. Like, I have to get back to life. Like, come on." So I was had the treatment, driving home to Wanaka, halfway from Wanaka and Dunedin. I just remember bursting into tears out of nowhere. And I was like, whoa, like, what's this? And I just asked myself, became aware of what it was about. And I realized at the moment I was letting go of a few different things. One being like different emotions around 3 men in my life, actually. And I knew at that moment I was letting go of stuff. Like, I felt it. I was like, okay, let it go. Got home, went into the house I was moving into, unpacked my bags, and I'm not joking. That night at 10 at night, I went toilet and my period came back,
I
and
knew I was waiting for that.
Mm. My mind was absolutely blown. I was like, "What the, like, this?"
Yeah.
I was shook. I was like, I rang my mum crying. I was like, do you know what's just happened? She was like, what? And I was like, I know, I don't, like, I was so overwhelmed. Because this was the first time I'd ever at an experiential level felt the truth of the mind and body being connected and emotions and all the things and suppression. And I was
Yeah. You
yeah,
had tangible evidence in front of
yeah.
you. I'm curious, up until that point, how did you relate to your emotions? Were you someone that would find yourself crying? Were you someone that didn't? Because, when we start in certain nervous system states, for some people, it's really hard to cry, or they're overly emotional. What were you like in relation to your emotions to that point?
Yeah, good question. I was actually very overly emotional. And actually, I remember, as you say that, when I was with my daughter's father, he would always be like, why do you cry all the time? Like, I would just that would be my response would be like, just cry, and always being very, very sensitive growing up. And yeah, but then I think, I don't even know how or why, but when I ended that relationship and I got into another one, I think I just went into this phase of like, my coping without knowing was just like, everything's fine, carry on. And so I went through a phase of not feeling. And then went through heartbreak 2 years later, and I just something in me just shut down. Just, yeah.
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 And there's feeling with the stories attached, still kind of intellectualizing, or there's just letting the feelings come through you, which probably happened in the car where it's just like, I don't feel like I've got control over this,
Yeah.
which can feel, quite hard if you've been like a piece of ice for so
Yeah. Yeah.
long.
Yeah. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
hear that, I totally
Yeah.
resonate with that
Yeah.
at
Big
certain points
time.
in my journey.
Big time. And I'm experiencing similar things now, which is another thing. But it's interesting. Like, now that I've done the study in the nervous system, and trauma informed care, and become a practitioner, it's like, oh, I get it now. Like, I understand what the responses are. So that's really helpful in my journey now, because I
Totally.
all of that led me here, right? Because I was like, what? Yeah, and actually growing up, and I didn't know till I knew that I was a very anxious, highly functioning anxious person. I used to think I was incredibly shy, and I didn't know until spoke about anxiety, right, growing up. And so but then I realized I was very, very anxious always. And so I was really shy. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't look them in the eye. I couldn't, all of these things. And I'd overthink all the time. I'd always spiral, always in my head growing up, always worried. And anyway, so I've got myself out of that now. Yeah. So yeah, that it was really interesting how my nervous system sort of changed states throughout my life too. And understanding now, I have love and compassion for that younger version of myself, I just didn't have the capacity to cope with what I was feeling. So, the body does that. It goes like, you sorry, we can't do that right now. Well, that's okay. We want to keep you alive and survive. So
That it protects you until the time is right, when you kind of get that straw on the camel's back. So obviously you made that connection between emotions and your physical health changing, and I guess that was quite a turning point in your journey.
mm,
From then
yeah.
on, was it just quite like strides forward in the right direction? Because we will circle back to like what you do now, but just from that point of it.
No, that was 2021, I think, or end of 2020, actually. Yeah, around that time. And so, like, that was just this big, yeah, that had happened. I was like, okay, there's something else here. Like, but I'd started my business again, and I just kept doing what I was doing before I stopped, without making
Yeah.
changes. Actually, I
Yeah.
like, it all got went well again. People came back to me, like, they trusted me, they knew me, like, yeah. And then I continued to do that for a few years, but I remember feeling internally like really drained by it, and I was like, I'm like, the thought of doing it again, I remember feeling like almost fear around, too stressful, won't cope with it, it's too much, like, I don't want to get up early, I need a rest. And something in me was like, this doesn't feel true anymore, but I'm just doing it because it's what I know and it's what I'm good at, and that's what you do. So why would I change? And so
Yep. I'm sure lots of people can relate to that.
yeah, and like, oh, I've done it 10 years. Who's gonna, like, what am I gonna do? What am I, this is my purpose. Rah, rah, rah. And then I, from then I went on a big personal development journey. And, prior to that, had sort of done some things like I've done now like 3 10-day silent meditation, Vipassana meditation retreats, and like things where I would like do hectic stuff, but I was sort of touching the surface and maybe not ready. I don't know. And then I started working with a somatic coach after that time when I was rebuilding my life. And that was really awesome because it started to help me to learn about my nervous system and different tools and feeling sensation in my body and what it was speaking. Because prior to that, I obviously didn't listen because I just lost my period and was still running up Mount Iron and doing crazy stuff. And so that was a really, really, really helped me at that time. And at the same time, I was doing really intensive gut healing protocols and working on my physical health too and getting back into training and getting stuff back together. And then so I'm the type of person that tries everything, and I was and still learning, unlearning, all or nothing, and would chase peak experiences, to be honest. And that was familiar to me and my nervous system. And I did plant medicine, so I've done ayahuasca, I've done many ceremonies, I've just things like that were pivotal tools to help me get to where I am now and allowed me to release a lot of stuff. And then one day I saw advertisement for it was called Awaken the Sacred in Hawea. And I'd been following this chiropractor, Dr. Brett Jones, online for years. And then he was working with this woman, Shalita, who has been Shalita Zaini, who's a Māori healer and breathwork facilitator. And I remember, I think I saw the image and I was like, I need to go to that. And I don't know why. And it was only a 20-minute drive. So I'm like, why would I not? It's right here. And I remember thinking, I don't know what it is. I'm like terrified. But it was that first sort of moment where I thought, there's something in me and I don't know what it is, but it's telling me to go. So I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go. And I'm terrified, but I'm going to go. And yeah, I experienced my first ever breathwork journey. And that was end of 2024. And there was other things that happened within that day, but it was really incredible, amazing. And if I had known what it would entail, I wouldn't have gone, but lucky I didn't. And it was life changing. And I was like, whoa, breath work, something's in this. So from that day, I was like, I'm going to study it. So straight away, I dove into studying trauma-informed breathwork facilitation and nervous system informed care practitioner. And so I was actually, at that time, I was working in a clothing shop, because I wanted, as well as doing my business on the side, but I was needing to build it up. And I wanted to go somewhere where I didn't have stress. I just wanted to go to a job and come home. Yeah. And that was for about 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, I was still doing my business. So it wasn't but it was just a few things here and there, early morning classes and a few clients. And then, so it wasn't supporting me fully. And then overnight, the business I was working in went into liquidation. And I got told, you're losing your job tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Ironically, at the same time, I did this event. And so I remember being scared of I didn't want to let go of this job. And I knew it wasn't what I'm supposed to do. I've always had big dreams and been really driven, but I just needed this little bit of stress-free reset time. And now I look back and I think, what a blessing, because it made me study and it made me do full-time, throw myself into full-time study for a year. So I did that. I became certified and I started to do that work with people. And it just it was really transformative for my life and other people's lives. And I was like, this is just helping us to connect to feeling emotion and regulating our nervous systems. And, in breathwork journeys, you can, if you are open, have a life-changing experience in 2 hours. You can, if you're willing and you're open and you trust. And
so were you doing that? Sorry, I was just going to say, were you doing that with your clients that were your PT clients? So they were coming to you initially for more of a physical transformation, and then you were taking them through the breathwork as well.
Yeah, and it was funny because, well, not funny, maybe they didn't think it was funny. I was doing 12-week challenges where I was like, okay, so we're actually bringing in some more nervous system stuff and emotion, embodied regulation and connecting to our bodies. And I would make them sit down when they'd come into a session to do a workout. And I'd be like, okay, guys, we're going to connect to our bodies and what it's saying in breathwork. And a lot of women were really resistant. They're like, I didn't come here for this shit, like sort of just,
Yeah.
I'm here to work out and go, like, go, go, go. This is what we're here to work out. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Clock's
said,
ticking.
and I was like, hey, like, as women, for one, if our hormones, our cycle, it's constantly changing. So should how we work out. So should how we eat. So should how we sleep, rest, whether we are social or not, how we train, So I had learned about that a few years before that, but I was slowly over the years trying to infuse that into my training and help to educate women around, the cycle and cortisol and all of that stuff, HIIT training.
I'm just curious about like obviously you're met with a little bit of a resistance when we're forced to slow down. It's like, oh, we haven't got time for that.
Yeah.
What other patterns were you seeing with those clients? Because you obviously worked with women for so many years and you could see the missing link after your experience with emotional health and stress and load on the nervous system. So yeah, what were you actually seeing quite consistently with those PT clients?
Yeah, I love that question. I had worked with women for a decade, or over a decade actually, probably PTing 13 years. Over time, I started to become aware of, and actually when I first started training people, I only did HIIT training. So I did boot camp style. So it was like, you go hard, go hard or go home. Like, I'm going to push you till you like spew outside kind of vibe. But that's how I trained myself too. So like, I didn't know better. And it was kind of the buzz at that time. Like F45 was coming out and
Yeah.
like, so I was like, cool,
Oh
like
God.
this is the
I
thing.
was that girl too.
Oh
I
no.
was like F45, double sessions a day. Oh my God.
Honestly, yeah, don't even get me
My
started.
nervous system was shot. But yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
carry on.
same. And yeah, so they would come, they're like, this is the answer too. And then, so as I started to learn about this and share this more, I had a lot of, it seemed to be older women, all ages, yes, but the theme was women that were very highly successful in business, very highly driven and like leaders and strong and powerful and full of direction. And they all were overweight, struggling to lose weight, stressed, their personal lives, there was shit going on. Some of them had been sick, had cancer before. I did different workshops actually leading women where they were all like accountants or lawyers or, very high paid, high stress jobs. And I'm not kidding, this moment blew my mind. There was about 30 women in this one particular time. And all of them had either had cancer, some or like and got, gone into healed. Some had cancer at the time, like we're taking medication because it's going to be, they'll live with it. Or like weight health issues, some sort of thing. All of them were so stressed, and even to come to this event, which was meant to be to like receive and to give back, it was like this huge deal to take a day off, to rest, to slow down. So what I was trying at that time to educate was like, hey, we're going to tune in, listen to the body, rest, and sharing my story. And I started to speak about, I would go and coach some of these women about like, it became bigger, like what's going on in your life, what's happening. And there was that, doing all the right things, eating right, exercising regularly, being very consistent with me, like definitely that wasn't an issue. And, maybe not sleeping properly. And then I would say like, hey, speaking around stress, because, if we have too much stress on the cells, too much inflammation drives up, too much cortisol, too much, too increase in stress hormone. And if the stress hormones are impacting our body and staying in that fight or flight state for an extended period of time, inflammation, like which can lead to disease, right? Whether that be from from emotion or physical thing. It's not only emotion that causes sickness, of course not, but in what I've experienced personally and with who's around me, it has been suppressed emotion. And so when we started to look at these things, even myself started to learn that less is more and listening to the body. And ironically now, it shocks people to hear, and I know I'll go back to it, but I haven't been to the gym to work out with, like, working out how I used to for 7 months. So, and my body has actually lost the weight. Like, I also did all the right things, and I
Mhm.
started to feel my emotions and do embodiment and do these different things, which I do with my work now, and feel my emotions. And then everything shifted. So that for me, it wasn't about pushing and grinding and being like, oh, I've got all this inflammation, I can't lose weight. Like, okay, so I better eat less and work harder and do a half marathon, or, get up at 5 a.m. I was like, nah, you got to sleep in, and
Yeah, 'cause your
you've
body
got to,
thinks you're running from a tiger.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so that was when I noticed the weight actually shifting and my body changing. And even within clients now with the work I do, one in particular had like so much pain in their hip where they've been to like all the things, all the people, all the physios, no one could fix it. We released some emotion from her hip and the pain's not come back. So you can't read about that, and that may not make sense to people, but they're like, it's gone, it's fine. So it's just all these
Yeah,
links that I'm like, I can't, like, I'm now, and we'll get into that, but like now I have a couple of personal training clients, and it's because they've worked with me for so long. But I simply will not and cannot help anyone that only wants physical training, because it's deeper, and you're wondering why.
yeah,
Like, I know what's going on, but if you're not, I'm sorry, like, if you're not open and willing to work with me on this, I can't help you, and that's it.
completely. And I
Yeah.
think it's so multifaceted because there's that part, especially as women, our socialization, how we're conditioned. I
Mm.
mean, I know maybe not my generation, but the generation above and above, it's like there was the good girl conditioning, the diet
Yeah.
culture, like
Oh,
all of
yeah.
these things that come into play, these beliefs that we don't question, that we're
Yeah.
starting to question.
Yeah.
Our natural physiology as women, which is different than men, which we were
Mhm.
never taught.
Exactly.
And then I think when people, it's like you scratch the surface, right? In terms of like you open a conversation, but for a lot of people, because let's be real, a lot of people were just getting through the day financially, relationally, like they're
Yeah.
just trying to make ends meet. So for a lot of people, it's kind of that fear of, well, if I address this is actually going to require more energy that I don't have.
Yes.
And it's a fear for a lot of people to actually
Yeah.
look at their stress or look at their
Yeah.
relationships, look at emotions from the past.
Big
So I
time.
get it, but it's like at the same time, there's a choice. You can't
Yeah.
get what you want and where you want
Yeah.
to go unless you're actually willing to move through some of that discomfort.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, and it's, like you've just said, it's that people are in survival mode, aren't they? So it's like when you're in survival, fight or flight, tunnel vision, that you've got no capacity to even go there, to even look, right? And so with the work you do too, and I do, it's like expanding the nervous system capacity to actually be able to feel and to cope and to look at it and to regulate into a sense of safety within your body. So you're regulated and grounded and in a state where actually that becomes possible, and you have more clarity and energy to do these things and to make a different choice, right?
Correct. Well, you've actually where you've just what you've just said is actually what I want to edge into because you mentioned capacity, right?
Mm.
So building the container to actually hold more emotions or discomfort or stress so that our system doesn't completely tip out of balance into fight or flight or into shutdown.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about with capacity. And for a lot of us, our systems just we don't have enough capacity to even process emotions. You did the breath work, and then now you are a sensual embodiment facilitator, Kundalini activation facilitator. For a lot of people listening, they will have no idea what that actually means. So I'm
Mm.
going to hand it over to you. It's an extension of the breath work you did in a sense of like somatically connecting to the body. But what are those things? Tell us more.
I love this question because it's so like whenever you try and say, "What do you do?" I'm like, uh,
I
where do I
know,
where do I
but
start?
in your own words.
Yeah, I know. And like the funny thing is, a year no, when it would have been in May last year, I didn't even know what it was myself. So here we are. But that's why I love life, right? And just because you just don't know when your life's going to change if you're open to it changing, really. So yeah, I was doing like full-time sort of breathwork, coaching, mindset, which I still do now. But then I got we may talk about that story later, but how I got led to doing the work I do now was like something greater than myself. And it now I see that I'm meant to be doing this. So yes, there's the breathworks part of it, but my purpose lies in the sensual embodiment in the Kundalini activation. So essentially what it is we're working with Kundalini Shakti, which is feminine current, life force energy. So it's, within each human, we all have our masculine and our feminine parts of us. Irrespective of gender, we have both. And it works with the feminine current. And so, I found with most of my life up until the last year, I was overly identified in my masculine. So like pushing, grinding, leading, but like single mum for years, business owner, like not resting, not like always, yeah, just not in
Goes
my,
on.
yeah, not connected to my feminine essence and who I am at my core, right? So this allows you to reconnect to that and who you always were before any of the things that you experienced that caused you, I would say, pain and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
To that made you see the world in a lens that is false, essentially. Like maybe something that happened to you that made you think that you weren't good enough or you weren't worthy or, you know?
And armor up physically as well, not only those belief systems. Because I've been on the same journey,
Yeah,
softening into
yeah,
when we're talking about it, it's a lot harder to put it into words because I don't know that it can be put into words, but it's sort of removing the layers of armoring physically
yeah.
and the belief
Yes.
systems
Yes,
with it.
thank you. Yeah, that's great. And it's dissolving what's false within your belief system, within, in my belief and experience, we hold all of our trauma experiences, memories in our fascia. So and our mind body system. So that can cause, if we don't release the blockages, anxiety, depression, sickness, lack of capacity, like disease. And so this allows us to essentially what I'm doing is I'm activating your own life force energy that rests in you, that already is within you. I'm not putting anything onto you. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just allowing it to activate and rise through up your spine. Essentially, we work with the lower centers. So most in this work, most of our trauma is stored in our lower three centers. So your root chakra, which is responsible for your security, your sense of safety in the world, your financial security, your sacral, so your creativity, your sexuality, your sensuality, and your solar plexus, so your sense of self-worth and your power. So what we're doing is we're activating it, but it needs to rise from the root chakra. It needs to be open. And I know clients that have worked with me, they've asked me questions first because of what they've heard or whatever, because it can be confronting because it's bringing up what you may need to look at and face and feel and let go of. So past experiences might arise, memories that need to be felt and catalyzed. Like what word am I looking for?
Digested kind of thing.
Yeah, like yeah, digested to be let go of so you can move forward. So to move forward, we've got to let go of our past that's been weighing us down. And so the ultimate goal though is to turn let's say pain into pleasure. So and also understanding that both can coexist at the same time. So,
Mm.
within a session you might experience array of things like sadness, grief, anger, frustration, but also absolute pleasure and joy and laughter and blissful states. And actually orgasmic states are possible. So it's like we can't we can't destroy or create energy, but we can transform it. And so that's what we're doing. So most people leave feeling really deeply connected to themselves and to their truth. They feel like calm and regulated. We're working with the nervous system, the psyche, the energetic body, the spine. We're releasing stored tension. We're deeply emotionally regulating you. And it's bringing up for you what you need to see for your highest good. We're always working with your highest self. So I'm just the guide,
Facilitator.
like, yeah, like I just allow that. The ultimate goal is for me is to hold that really safe space where you feel held and seen and supported and actually deeply held. So your nervous system feels at an experiential level that it's safe to let go. And it may be the first time in your life you've ever felt held before. And I know that that was true
Mm-hmm.
for my experience in my training. Was I got so like my body felt and I couldn't, no one can tell, you can't tell someone you're safe to feel this. If they don't feel safe
Mm-hmm.
inside internally, absolutely not. If they don't trust,
Well, they don't trust you. And we regulate with oxytocin as women. We need touch.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
missing from a lot
yeah,
of
yeah, exactly. And
teachings.
so there was a lot, we de-armor the body where you go into different, I feel you've got stuck emotions, say it might be your hip flexor or your diaphragm or in your throat and your neck, or then what happens is we actually physically work on the body to release it. But what can happen is emotions can arise, right? Or their memory might come up and you feel it, you let it go. But then in that, because it's so deeply trauma informed, I hold all the tools to hold that. And so, and to physically, I hold you. I like lie with you. I may have my head on your heart while you're crying, holding you, hugging you. And I had that done for me, so because I got to experience that, it taught me how to hold another woman in that. And I didn't know that's what I
Mm.
needed. It's so beautiful because it's like, for me growing up, and because my parents didn't have the capacity to hold me like that, like they had a lot of stuff going on themselves. So it was the first time I was like, this is what it means to like, I can breathe and like my nervous system can reprogram and integrate the sense of safety and that I don't have to brace for the next bad thing to happen. So what this work is doing, it's actually rewiring your nervous system to safety, so within
Mm.
yourself. So it's taking your power back too.
Mhm.
But the other part of it is the embodiment, which my teacher Chelsea has created this training where it's like it brings in the sensual embodiment piece too, which there's none in the world, I don't think, trainings that have this piece of it too. But that's a really important piece that we do at the beginning, and I actually do every single day as a routine. I wouldn't miss it. Is what we're doing is we're connecting to the body through sensation. So we're getting out of the head and into the body and into your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest. And we are learning you're actually closing down the eyes and you're connecting with your body and you're moving your hips and your spine. We're getting energy to move and we're asking, what am I feeling today, right now? Okay. So, it's an internal experience, but what sensations am I feeling? Is there tightness in my chest? Am I feeling tingling somewhere? Am I feeling heat? Maybe also there's numbness in the pelvis and disconnect. That's also okay, but we acknowledge that. And especially if there's been sexual trauma or, things like that, that's likely going to happen. And a lot of women are disconnected and numb. So this is a way of creating sensation, but at your own pace. You get your sovereignty back. Like you get to take the power and lead at a pace you want to. And then the next part of
Mm.
that is, what do I want to let go of? So through the body, how would I let go of this pattern that I'm stuck in? How can I really release it? And then the next part is what I want to call in more of through my body, through sensation, through my heart, like literally manifesting through the body. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, it's a way of repatterning and rewiring neural pathways by inviting you to move in nonlinear ways that feel awkward, uncomfortable, unfamiliar, to rewire that. So part of it is it's helping women to reconnect to their heart, their mind, their sex, like their pleasure,
Yeah.
because it's our birthright.
A woman connected spiritually and sensually is a very powerful woman. And I
Yeah.
think we underestimate those qualities because they haven't been valued.
No, and in all honesty, like patriarchy, conditioning, we've been made to fear our power. We are powerful, and it's been sensuality. Don't mistake the sensual embodiment for sexuality. It's not that.
Mm.
It's with that we've been over sexualized, like, oh, we're doing this for performance, or like because we want a guy to like us, like look at me shaking my body, or my hip, moving my hips, or touching my body, connecting to myself. No, actually it's a reclamation of ourselves, our truth, our power, our essence. And also,
Mm-hmm.
if we look at it like, as women, we give, we serve, we caretake, we do all these things. This is actually about reclaiming and regulating after doing all of that. This is like activating and connecting to our life force energy. So it's our life force when we're embodied, when we're connected to our sensuality and our sexuality, we are empowered, and we're vital. We're healthy.
Yeah.
But that is also
Yeah.
confronting to people because unfortunately, we've kept ourselves small. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be shamed. We don't want this. And that's fair enough. That's been a big journey of mine in the last 6 months, to just being seen in this work and reclaiming who I am and connected to that part of me, because I am deeply connected to that, always was, but I suppressed it. So it's liberating, but it really triggers people, because when you're not connected to that part of you, you judge that, because you're actually craving to connect to that yourself, but you don't know how, and you weren't taught how, or you taught to shame it. So part of this work for me is liberating others, being like, nah, we're reclaiming your power because you deserve it. And it's actually, when you do that, it's empowering for yourself, but also, like, part of it for me is empowering women. And it's not about competing or performing. When you deeply accept who you are authentically in yourself, you want to do the same for other women. You don't compare or compete or judge, truly. You want to,
Absolutely.
all I want to do is be like, yes, girl, like, it's not about like, oh, don't do what I'm doing, because like, nah, it's really, it
Yeah,
shifts.
you celebrate other
Yeah.
you're in your own lane. But I think the thing that's more powerful is people like me and you who have actively and openly said, I've struggled with self-esteem, I've struggled
Yes.
with comparison, I've struggled
Oh my
with
gosh.
judgment being
Yeah.
seen, and then getting to that point where
Yeah.
you feel like that inner power
Yeah.
and connection to your body,
Yeah.
that is also very powerful, because it's like we have to rediscover it. It's not something that always comes
Big
easy.
time. Well, that
That's
gave
for
me
sure.
shivers. Yeah. Yeah, and a
Yeah.
piece in that is like, if we have, which most of us, especially me, I lost trust in myself because I didn't trust my intuition and listen to my body. So I made choices that I self-abandoned, and I really hurt myself, And I think what this work does also is reconnects you to your intuition and to yourself. So I am not like, what was a really challenging piece a few months ago was, I knew when I was decided to be seen in who I actually am. Don't get me wrong, I didn't know who I was before this. This helped me find who I actually was again, that as a remembering, essentially. So for people like coming out in this work, it felt like, honestly, a coming out, like, this is what I'm doing now.
Coming out of the closet.
Like, yeah, so scared to be seen and judged and all that. Like, and ironically, that's what happened, but I expected that was what was gonna happen, and people were really brutally, beautifully honest, like, women being like, "I was really triggered by you and you annoyed me, but I understand now it's because I haven't been authentic with myself, and I've been putting on a mask," and things like this. And so the biggest challenge was actually being seen in this and, like, being authentic, and, like, even though it's gonna be terrifying and but it's learned me to show me who I really am and connect to my purpose and to my power and my authenticity. But then when I learned to trust myself again, it's actually led me to everything that's meant for me and my dreams. So what do you do? Like, what am I going to do? Pretend to be someone I'm not and live another life and then or be me and be judged anyway. So, it's like,
Exactly. And I get that in the sense, like for people listening where they're like, oh, you guys are talking quite esoterical and it's quite vague. But in a session when you're doing this, because I have had actually I've had a session with Tawna before, it's like an energetic session. It's like I liken it to Reiki, even though it's quite different than Reiki. It's like someone is sitting there, they are not touched. Well, you did say if you're in person, you can
yeah,
do self-touch, but
yeah,
for the most part, working with energy and chakras in the body. So sometimes your body can move and you have movements in the spine, movements in the body, that's all processing and things changing at the nervous system level. So I can understand when people say, oh, you triggered me, or oh, what is that? It can
mm,
appear quite different to what
yeah,
realm they've known, right? And you being embodied and moving your hips or getting there and sharing freely what you believe in. A free woman is a triggering woman, like you said. So I
yeah.
admire the fact that you have done that and you've posted that and you have been you, because
Thank
it's
you.
something I feel like I'm three-quarters of the way there, but there's still parts of me, as you guys listening on this podcast, as I start to share more of my truth, like even having a psychic on the last podcast
Yeah,
or two ago, I was like, oh God, this is stretching my edges a little bit. But
yeah.
once you own who you are, like you said, things start to come your way because
Mm,
you're being seen and
yeah.
you're putting that commitment and frequency out there.
Yeah, and also being seen and being, I think a big piece is authentic. We've spoken about it before. Yeah, it's it was one of the most terrifying parts for this part, yeah, was being seen because I was such a people pleaser. I just put masks on, I just molded myself to be liked. And that partly probably why my business was really successful because I can talk to anyone. I would just be like, oh, people must like me like this. So yeah, I'll do that and I'll overextend myself and I'll give so much of myself but I also trust that whoever's meant to find this work will. One more thing I'll touch on with the like videos that I post, for example, like some of them look like um people liken it to like it looks like an exorcism or something, and I'm like, it's actually, and that's fair enough. Your body's doing what it wants to do and you're trusting your body to do that. And we're just moving energy. But like you said, if we've been conditioned or we haven't seen something like that before, and especially when there's no one touching someone, how can like your logical mind tries to make sense of it when you can't make logical sense of something like that, and I get that. So yeah, it's, I think part of it, like yourself, like you were really wary beforehand and cautious with that sort of thing, and then decided to be open and to trust it, and then you understand when it's experienced, right? And don't get me wrong, it's not every session. It doesn't have to be like, some people lie still and it's still working. So some people are more responsive to the energy, but it's still deeply working regardless, like of what your body chooses to respond, how it chooses to respond to it. But the more we can trust and surrender, the deeper we can go ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you don't have to convince anyone
Exactly.
to try and even explain it half the time, because if you're drawn to something like Reiki or energy work, then you're gonna like have your own experience, right? But I do think the whole de-armoring of the body, softening into the body,
Mm,
clearing some of the blockages, think it's going to become more and more popular, and I think it's going to become more and more normalized,
yeah.
because as I seem to say on so many podcasts, this stuff is only weird or foreign in Western society. It's
Woo
not the
woo.
same in so many other cultures. So
Yeah, and that was a huge part as well, was like me finally owning my woo, call it woo woo spiritual side, because I always kind of I was really like intrigued by energy work and stuff when I was younger, but I never would like I never thought that I would be doing this work. I think also I was quite, would the word be embarrassed or ashamed, or like, I don't want to be seen as the weirdo, or like, but then I'm like, hang on, just what you said, like, it's just society and conditioning and like being in our Western world, like anywhere else, it's very, yeah. So that's just, I just had to work through that as well. Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I've had similar feelings, and I have my own category.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm very science focused and
Yeah.
rational, and then I have a part of me that's also very deeply spiritual and intuitive and knowing. And I think when we come to that moment where we can hold all parts and own all parts, then that's when we accept ourselves.
Yeah, big time. You're right. It's like part of even just doing with this work, there's a lot of shadow work. It's like not pushing away the parts we don't like, or we that might create those feelings of shame or uncomfortable feelings, but when we embrace all parts of ourselves because that is actually our truth, then then we feel a lot more free, because when I suppressed all those different parts, I got sick. So yeah, it's all a learning, isn't it? It's a process, it's a journey. It's not easy. I'm not going to say it's all rainbows and butterflies, because it ain't. It's like, yeah,
No, but life isn't it? We
certainly
both know that.
not.
So tell me, tell us where you're at now and all the amazing things you've learned maybe this year as you're stepping into doing what you're being more called to do, the ways in which you've manifested some of your current reality and how you're feeling moving forward.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited and expanded about with this work. Like, it lights me up so much, and that's how it gives me energy, right? So that's how I know I'm on the right path. Like, there's some really cool events that I've got in the works with different people, and that's really cool. It's very new to New Zealand. Well, to being spoken about. So it's cool. I really am loving that. Even where I live, just sharing it, it's got such a fantastic response, and it's just awesome. I really do transform people's lives, and it feels epic. Like,
Yeah.
just to be able to serve others, to transform pain to pleasure, and get like have an impact where they leave feeling amazing. That's just such a, yeah, that's one of my greatest blessings, right? So this work has allowed me to step into my purpose, which is incredible, because I trusted that like I got a bit lost there for a while. So to feel like I know what I'm doing and where I'm going, I'm like, that feels really good. And trusting that. But it's also like, truly this work has manifested dreams of mine, and I don't say it lightly at all. Like, for years I was trying to like call in a really like strong and loving, supportive, safe, grounded, emotionally available man, and I was like always getting the opposite. And it was like one of those, like, talking about patterns that you want to break.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm ruled by this. I feel like it's going to be my whole life. Like, I'm exhausted. This is just, I can't believe it. And the same pattern would keep repeating itself, and I'd end up getting hurt over and over again. And I was like, what is going on? Anyway, and so I've actually been able to, through embodiment, through Kundalini, releasing all of my past that's been blocking me actually from calling in what I want, because when we release different blockages, we change and raise our frequency. We raise our vibration. It's bigger than us. We're energy. We constantly on different, like, think about it like a radio frequency. We're tuning in and out to different things.
Mm.
Also, I have used my breathwork, visualization, meditation, working with the quantum field, universal law of inspired action, all of that, and I've did truly manifest like exactly my dream man, like to a T, like saw visions of it, wrote it like before it happened, and that's a whole nother podcast, but it's that. And I realized, like, it's real, like manifestation and universal laws and frequency, it's real, like it's real. And I can say it's true because it's like there's a tangible physical thing in my reality. But yeah, that's been awesome. But then with that, comes its own challenges in the sense of, because part of a lot of this work is rewiring the brain and neural pathways, and very challenging to do when you're older as well, because your personality is so hardwired, right? And we lean towards what's comfortable and familiar, what our nervous system knows, even if it's unhealthy or chaotic or, and so to choose to lean into the, let's call it the unfamiliar heaven over a familiar hell is really hard. And it's made me learn about, understand more even with people with training, for example, or doing something another way. If something isn't working for you, you've got to do something different. But when you're so used to knowing what you normally do and it's comfortable, like, oh, I'll still go running every day, even though my body's saying no, and I'm gaining weight. And like for people to change their mind and do is very hard. So it's way deeper, as you know, it's the work you do to rewire is like it's
It
deeper.
takes a
So
lot of consistency
yeah, yeah, it does. It does. Showing up every day.
in
Yeah,
small ways. But yeah, I hear you. Just because we change and we get something we want in life, we still have to be doing actively changing beliefs and leaning into the discomfort of having that and being safe to have that.
yeah. It's that what you just touched on, the safety. And this is where the nervous system stuff comes in, because whatever we want to call in and change in our lives, yeah, we can manifest it, but can you hold it? Can you receive it?
Mm,
Do you have the capacity in your nervous system and in your body to hold it and not sabotage it? Truly, because that's a thing. Like, I have to every day still work on the work hasn't stopped for me, it's actually increased. It's like, okay, Tawna, you've got to do your work, do your practices every day
mm,
and train your nervous system to receive, for one, but also
mm,
to learn what safety feels like in the nervous system in regards to love, because I still like my mind will be like, oh, why aren't you being mean to me? Or why don't I have to chase you? Why don't I have to prove my worth? Why are you staying? Like, why are you staying? Why are you nice? Where's the drama? Can we have a fight? Like, just this thing where it's like what I know in that chaos, and then it's like, hang
yeah.
on, Tina. No, we breathe, we anchor. This is what safety looks like. It's consistent, it's calm. It's not going to have the highs and the lows. That's so unfamiliar for me, but I'm choosing consciously to choose and know that that's safe and train my body to feeling to what that feels like. And then knowing
Mm,
the other part of this is we just had a chat in a mentorship I'm doing of like, we're either consciously choosing our life or we're unconsciously letting life choose it for us. So what do we want? Like, yes, and like with rewiring pathways, it is hard. And I see why people choose to stay comfortable and stay the same then doing the mahi. Like, it took me a year straight to manifest this. So, yeah, it takes time. Shows that's the consistency, but, like, we got it, like, what it's choosing to remember and changing the internal world. So doing the work to change the
stories.
internal world to believe you have to believe truly at a experiential, like, felt sense that you're worthy of receiving it. When you decide
Mhm,
this was the big piece for me, when I decided and I'd done the work to release the things, when I believed so when I released what was blocking me from what I wanted to receive and the events that had made me feel not good enough, it then brought me back to my
mhm,
power and my worth. So I believed that
mhm.
I was worthy of receiving the love I wanted, and I knew in my heart and my everything he was coming. I knew. It's like that's when it shifted and when it came in. It wasn't when I was going,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm really desiring a man. When is he coming? I want him. I'm searching for him. Where is he?" Like, think about that in frequency and vibration. That's like repulsive to men because they feel that. But as
Mhm,
soon as you let go and
mhm.
trust and surrender, and I'll relate it back to the work I do, miracles happen. They do. Like,
Solid. Yeah, and you being solid and comfortable in your own energy, and that is very
yeah,
magnetic and powerful.
yeah,
And I think what you just said around being used to the highs and lows, your body is literally going through a withdrawal of this
yes,
cocktail chemical of
yes,
stress
yes,
hormones when
yes,
you're with someone who is a great, loving partner if
Yeah.
you're used to not
Yes,
having
it
that.
is. It's literally like that.
I'm very aware when I get in a relationship, holy shit, there's going
Yeah.
to be some things that
Get
I'm
ready,
sure will
girl.
be coming to this.
Because that's the thing. I'm
We'll
like,
cross that bridge when it comes.
just and the
Yeah.
beauty of it is we know we're aware of what's happening and we've got the tools that support our nervous systems and to increase our nervous system capacity to hold stress and
Yeah.
emotion. And this is what the work that we both do does for people, and to handle stress and all of that and hold the things that we want, hold the success, hold the love, hold the things. But it's like that's when your body feels safe because then you have the capacity and you feel held to release, to bring up more stuff that you couldn't do on your own. So, but we know that we can hold the pain, we can hold the grief, we know what happens, we know the process, you feel it,
We
you let
can
it
hold
go.
it, girl.
I hadn't
Me and you are
grieved
probably masters at holding.
I hadn't grieved so hard in years, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "It's okay." Like, but then
Yeah.
you get to the other side, and you grow and you evolve, and it's like part of the work, though, right? And we chose this work. We chose it. So we've got to go through it to teach others too. So it's like, who's going to come to me if I can't do what I say that I do or embody the work? That's the key, embodiment of the
Yeah.
work. So
For sure. Credentials, I don't think these days are cutting it.
yeah,
Like if you can't live what you teach and you can't be real in it,
yeah,
then for me personally.
yeah.
But anyway, gosh, we've covered a few bases on this chat and I've absolutely loved it. I've loved learning more about your story because I did know elements of it, but the way you've pieced it all together, I'm in awe of your journey and what you've navigated to become this powerful wahine.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank you so much for having me.
I've loved it. And where can people find you?
So I am on Instagram as Tawna Woods, and it's __ after my name. It previously was Wanaka Body. I don't actually think that comes up anymore. I've got a website as well and email, but that's still under Wanaka Body. But if you go onto emailing me at wanakabody@gmail.com, or if you go to my website, it actually comes up as Tawna Woods and it will say on there previously Wanaka Body. So yeah, will you
Cool.
attach the at the
I'll
bottom?
put it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my name. People are like,
Yeah.
"How do you spell
That's
that? What is that?"
yeah. No, I'll put all of Tawna's details in the show notes so you guys can check it out. And yeah, if you've got any questions, you can just message me.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
coming on and giving us your time, Tawna. It was awesome to have a chat.
Thank you.